Good morning, everyone. My name is Brijender Singh. Here at Vajiram, I take the ethics paper, I take the essay paper also, and today we'll be taking a brief look at the mains 2020, the paper that was conducted in January 21. We'll be taking a brief discussion on the mains 2020 essay paper. This discussion we'll divide into a course of about 4 videos. Each of them I'll take you slowly, gradually, briefly through what ideally is expected in an essay. How do you structure your thoughts? How do you structure your essay? How do you organize your content? And how do you write it, more importantly, in a manner that fetches you marks? Before I start explaining or before I take you to the rest of the class, first please understand the essay paper is a full paper in the mains which is worth 250 marks. Out of these 250 marks in the essay paper, scoring 125 plus is very easy, is very comfortable. The problem is that while this paper is easy and it's a very scoring paper, very little effort required, problem is that number one, many students, and I would say most students, do not invest the little amount of time and the little amount of effort that is required for the preparation of this paper. Many students take the essay paper very lightly. It is absolutely true that if you've been doing your GS well, if you've been reading your newspapers regularly, the essay paper should be easy to deal with. Yet, it is a full 250 mark paper, which is why a little bit of preparation is required and many students falter here. The second crucial area where students falter is when it comes to writing ability. I have seen n number of students who have very good thoughts, who, if you sit with them and discuss something, will give you amazing insights into almost any topic that you show to them. However, when it comes to writing that down on paper, many of these students face a mental block. But let me reassure you right here itself, and I'll show you why in the course of the class. In the essay paper, your writing abilities matter, but beyond a point, ultimately, it is the content that is going to be important. So whoever you are, whatever your stage of preparation, whatever your level of preparation, do not worry, do not bother about what exactly you're supposed to be doing here. All I would ask you to do is focus on preparing for it in the right manner. And to do that, why I say the essay paper is a scoring paper, let me first show you what exactly had come this year in the exam. The essay paper is divided into 2 sections, A and B. Each section contains 4 essay topics. You are supposed to choose one topic from each of the sections. The word limit for writing these essays, for writing both these essays is between 1,000 to 1,200 words, which means that you don't really have to write too much. You should have a sensible opinion on whatever is the topic given. And if you look at the topics themselves are not difficult, they're fairly easy, they're fairly simple. For example, if I take a look at this year's topics, the first section is what we call philosophical essays. 2020 paper, these are the topics that were given. Now every year when the essay paper is given, it contains 2 sections, A and B. Each section contains 4 essays. You have to choose one topic from section A, one topic from section B. And for either of the 2 essays, when you're writing the essays down, the word limit that is given to you is between 1,000 to 1,200 words, which means there's not really a lot of writing that you have to do. It's very small, it's very minimal. Now, and why do I say it's easy? Now, if you look at the first section over here, section A, these are the first 4 topics that are given. These topics are what we call reflective essays. Some people also prefer using the word philosophical essays. For example, life is a long journey between a human being and being humane. Second, a mindful manifesto is the catalyst to a tranquil self. Third, ships do not sink because of water around them, they sink because of the water that gets into them. And fourth, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Why do I say that these essay topics are easy? Because these are the kind of topics where if I give them to any student, just about any student who's prepared for the exam for even a period of 6 months, every single student will have a good opinion on it. almost any student, any of these topics, will be able to write some opinion on the other. The problem with most students is that they have only one opinion to offer. They will have one perspective that they can choose. They will have one dimension that they can state, as a result of which the rest of the essay becomes very repetitive. And that is what we want to avoid. How we do that, I'll discuss with you. Similarly, section B, there was one essay on economics, there was one essay on patriarchy or social issues, there was one essay on international relations also. For example, again, culture is what we are, civilization is what we have. There can be no social justice without economic prosperity, but economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. Third, patriarchy is the least noticed, yes, yet the most significant structure of social inequality. And fourth, technology as a silent factor in international relations. The paper was not difficult, writing on it was fairly simple, yet many students will struggle. To ensure that you do not struggle, now let me consider what exactly you're supposed to do. Today's class, just one of these essay topics I'll be taking a look at with you, which is the second one given over here. The second one given over here, that there can be no social justice without economic prosperity, but economic prosperity without social justice is virtually meaningless. Now, for any essay topic, this is the topic we look at. For any essay topic, what essentially are you supposed to do? Let me keep it for today's class. Let me start on a very simple level. 3 basic rules for every essay writing exercise you'll keep in mind. Number 1, understand the topic correctly. Number 2, while you're writing, provide a consistent perspective on the entire topic. And number 3, make the essay interesting to read, make the essay easy to understand. You are not writing something here to impress someone. You're writing something only with the intention of explaining your thoughts on a given topic. The simpler it is, trust me on this, the better and the richer will be your marks. Now, to look at these elements in a sequence, first and most importantly, understand the topic correctly. For example, the topic that we have chosen over here is this one. Again, there can be no social justice without economic prosperity, but economic prosperity without social justice is virtually meaningless. The first thing that you do in any essay writing exercise is that you understand the topic correctly. How do you understand the topic correctly? Number 1, read the topic completely, read it slowly, read it carefully, and while you're reading the topic, identify the key terms. My advice, students sometimes believe that it becomes a little time consuming, but my advice to you would be, while you're reading the topic, underline the words, the phrases, the terms which you believe are important for that topic. For example, here, social justice and economic prosperity. Very simple words, there's nothing difficult in them. But when you identify the key terms, along with that, understand the meanings of these terms. More importantly, identify how these terms are correlated to each other. Identify how they're connected to each other. Not connected in general, but connected with reference to this particular topic. If the examiner has chosen to put these terms in a particular sentence, in a particular phrase for your topic, what is the correlation, what is the connection that he expects you to understand? Now, let me again simplify, let me break this down for you. First, identify the key terms that are given to you, understand their meanings. Now here, what are the key terms for us? 2 of them, social justice and economic prosperity. What is social justice? Social justice very simply means that people should have equal access to resources, equal access to healthcare, equal access to justice, equal access to legal remedies, equal access to well-being and so on, regardless of their legal, their political, their economic or any other circumstances. What are the circumstances? Regardless of your gender, your caste, your region, your background, your age, everyone should enjoy equal access to these opportunities, to these rights and entitlements. Further, what is social justice? Essentially, as we'll discover in the course of the discussion, it will fundamentally boil down to redistribution of wealth, of income, of opportunities, of rights and entitlements. And similarly, to seek social justice, we can do it through a wide range of peaceful or even non-peaceful options. What are peaceful options? For example, government programs. For example, social campaigns, public activism, and if despite using these measures, we are not able to access or achieve social justice, people may use non-peaceful methods such as protests, such as revolution, or, or even terrorism. Now that is social justice. On the other hand, what is economic prosperity? Very often, and that is where I believe we make the fundamental error, we measure economic prosperity as GDP per capita. We focus on it in a quantitative manner, in a numerical manner, and consider largely only economic growth. Now, since we focus on economic growth, what is the problem? That we ignore developmental aspects. A person's income may be increasing, a country's per capita income may be increasing, a country's GDP may be increasing, but at the same time, what about the standard of living? What about literacy? What about access to healthcare? What about life expectancy? What about maternal mortality? These factors, unfortunately, often get ignored. As a result of which, even if we have some benefits from economic growth, these benefits may end up getting wasted or retained by a small, wealthy elite. In India, for example, we often say that the Indian economy is growing very rapidly. Absolutely true. GDP is increasing. We may become a $5 trillion economy. Absolutely true. But our concern is not only the growth, our concern is also distributive justice, or in plain simple words, the sharing of that growth. Is that growth being shared equitably among all sections of society? This unfortunately gets left out. Now, here let me take a pause. Number one, identify the key terms. Second, understand the correlation between them. What does this mean? This, in plain simple terms, and I think anyone will understand that while it is important to have economic prosperity for social justice, economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. Even if I grow at a very rapid pace, unless that growth is equitably shared, fairly shared, distributed well, it will not count for much. It will be absolutely meaningless. So first, identify the key terms. Second, understand the correlation between them. Third, to understand how you will choose a perspective towards the topic, rephrase the essay topic as a question. For example, in this case, what is the question? Is economic prosperity without social justice meaningless? The answer, without any hesitation, without any doubt, the answer has to be a yes. Without social justice, economic growth will not count for much. Only a few will benefit, a wealthy elite will benefit, the majority will not. And once you answer this question, this will help you understand, will help you establish your perspective on the topic. Will you agree with it? Will you disagree with it? Will you try to create a balance? So first, identify the terms. Second, understand the meanings, understand the correlation. Third, identify your perspective on the topic. Once you've understood the topic correctly, second thing that is required is that you provide a consistent perspective on the topic. Now, what do we mean by consistency? In this entire slide, the rest I'll explain to you in a moment or so, but in this entire slide, most importantly, please keep this word in mind, consistent. An essay is a 1,000 to 1,200 word long exercise, which means that by the time you're done writing, taking a look at an average student's handwriting, you would have written anywhere between 8 to 12 pages. Anywhere in your writing, if you contradict what you've stated, what you've expressed before, your essay loses quality and you lose marks. To give you a simple example, a couple of years back there was a mains topic which said that the fulfillment, one moment, which said fulfillment of the new woman is a myth. I'm sorry, this is not working as well as it should, but please bear with me. Which said that the fulfillment of the new woman is a myth. In plain simple words, what does this mean? That if we talk about women's rights, if we talk about feminism, if we talk about a woman who has better rights and entitlements than her predecessors had, this idea, this conception that such a woman could exist or such rights could be granted to her is a myth, is wrong. Now, you have the option of agreeing with this topic or disagreeing with this topic. Ideally, it is the kind of topic that you should say is wrong. You should disagree with the statement given here, but that we'll come to later. The problem, and that is what I mean by consistency here, problem with students is, let's say if I divide a student's essay into 3 parts, in the first 1/3, a student will disagree with this topic and say that no, it is not a myth. Agreed. Second 1/3, he will disagree with. Agreed. In the third one or the last 1/3 of the essay, somewhere or the other, he will make a small statement or write a small paragraph where he expresses agreement with the topic. The moment you do this, now there's a contradiction between what you wrote in the first part and what you're writing here. And the moment that contradiction is put down on paper, it leaves a very poor impression of your ability to understand the topic or a very poor understanding of your views on the topic. Which is why throughout the course of your writing, it is very important that you maintain consistency in your perspective. How do you do this? Number 1, identify your perspective on the topic. When we are rephrasing the topic as a question, this is what we are this is what we are trying to do. For example, last a few minutes back, this is what we said. Is economic prosperity without social justice meaningless? Answer is yes. So here, if I had to choose, do I agree with it or do I disagree with it? I would say that with this particular topic, I completely agree. Second, before you begin writing, this is what you're doing while you're brainstorming. Before you begin writing, create a skeletal structure of your essay. What is skeletal structure? That if this is my essay with this part being my introduction and this part being my conclusion, how is my essay going to proceed? What is the broad outline? What is the broad template? For example, here I will start first by explaining what social justice, what economic prosperity are. Second, I will explain how social justice cannot be achieved without economic prosperity. Third, and more importantly, I will explain how we often focus on only economic prosperity. When I focus only on economic prosperity, how this ignores, sometimes violates social justice, and how this can lead to problems. If I do not give people equal rights, if I do not ensure an equitable distribution or allocation of resources, what problems, what issues this can create. And fourth, every essay ideally should have a remedial measure. And for that remedial, fourth, finally explain how the two elements can or how the two elements should be balanced. Now, this is what I'm brainstorming. I know what my introduction is going to be, I know what my conclusion is going to be. More importantly, these are the 4 broad thoughts that I'm going to express in my essay. Whether I do it one after the other or whether I take up small parts of it and put it in one paragraph after the other, that I will leave up to the student. But first, identify your perspective, establish that. Second, create a skeletal structure of the essay. Once you've done this, third now, keep in mind also how you do this in detail, I'll explain to you in a few minutes. Third, make the essay, again, in very simple terms I'm explaining this to you, make the essay interesting to read and easy to understand. What makes an essay interesting to read? The use of anecdotes. What are anecdotes? Small stories. Use examples, use quotations, facts, data. Very effective tool to make an essay interesting, and I'm repeating this, very effective tool is comparisons and contrasts. Comparisons with the past, comparisons historically, comparisons geographically, comparisons on the basis of data, and so on. How you do that? Again, I'll explain to you in a few minutes when we get to the topic. First, make the essay interesting. Second, what makes an essay easy to understand? Here, please understand the key word over here. Keep the essay, keep your writing itself easy. Try to make your writing as simple as possible. There are many students who say that I don't have a good command over English, which is why I struggle with the essay paper. That's absolutely wrong. In the essay paper, you don't need complicated language. You don't need big words. All that you need is simple, easy to understand language. How do you make the essay easy to understand? When I as a reader or I as an evaluator look at your essay, I do not owe you anything. I am not here to give you some, see, an evaluator on average checks between 25 to 30 essays every day. I am not going to search. Students come and say, when, especially when they get poor marks, they come and say that, sir, this is what I wanted to write. Well, it was something you wanted to write, but you did not, which is why I cannot give you marks. All that you need to do is ensure that there's a logical flow, there's a logical structure. This logical structure is that skeletal structure we are just creating before this. Second, as far as possible, provide different perspective, different dimensions on the topic. Don't repeat the same point over and over again. Don't repeat similar examples over and over again. Provide fresh perspective, different perspectives. Third, in every paragraph, if not every paragraph, at least every alternate paragraph, renew and repeat your focus on the topic. Ensure that whatever you are writing keeps reinforcing what the topic was essentially stating. And fourth, as far as possible, maintain a generalist orientation. The essay paper is not a specialist, and I'm repeating this, it is not a specialist exercise, it is a generalist exercise. The more general your content, of course suitable, but the more general your content, the simpler your language, the easier your essay becomes to understand. And now to understand how you do this, one brief recap, 3 points that we looked at. Number one, as far as possible, understand the topic correctly. 3 points that we looked at so far. First, understand the topic correctly. Second, provide a consistent perspective on the topic. Do not deviate from what you started saying. Third, make the essay interesting to read and easy to understand. And to figure out how exactly you do this, let me also get to how you write your essay. Everyone knows, whether it is answer writing, whether it is case study writing, whether it is essay writing, your writing exercise has 3 basic parts: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Now, the length of an essay prescribed by the UPSC is between 1000 to 1200 words. If you do not stick to the word limit, number one, they will cut your marks. Second, which is even worse, if you exceed the word limit, you will not be able to complete your paper on time. Many students make the mistake of writing one essay exceptionally well. They write a brilliant essay, but because they invest a lot of time, they invest a lot of effort, by the time they get down to the second essay, they struggle for time and the quality of the essay dips. Do not make that mistake, it can be fatal in the mains. Therefore, understand the structure of your writing also. Introduction ideally should be between 150 to 200 words. What is the purpose of the introduction? To convey a correct understanding of the topic. Explain to the evaluator the broad outline of what you're trying to say and create a positive impact. Instead of the boring, monotonous essays that he's reading, to try and create a bit of a difference. Second, your body paragraphs. Now, I have invested about 200 words over here. My conclusion is going to take another 100 words, leaving me with roughly about 850 to 950 words. Now, if I have 900 words and I write 5 odd paragraphs, so about 150 words each, even that will suffice. You can write 5. If you have more content, you can write 6. But write good quality paragraphs and write paragraphs that are different. So, about 120 to 150 words of 5 paragraphs. Provide a distinct perspective on the topic and create persuasive arguments. What persuasive arguments are, I'll explain to you. Persuasive arguments to support your viewpoint. And third, finally, always write the conclusion. You do not write the conclusion, what does it convey to me? That you have very poor time management. You started, but you could not complete the exercise. In the conclusion, what do? Reinforce your views on the topic and leave the examiner with a favorable impact. Now, this is the broad structure of how exactly you write your essays. Let me also take a look at how exactly you write. Now, for this topic, that social justice needs economic prosperity, but economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. Let me first look at content for the introduction and the conclusion. The purpose of the introduction and the conclusion both is more or less the same. Number one, for the introduction specifically, it is to provide the examiner with an outline of what to expect in your essay. For the introduction as well as the conclusion, the ultimate objective is to create a positive and a favorable impact. When I read your introduction, I should be genuinely interested in reading the rest of your essay. When I finish reading the conclusion, because that is when I'm going to give you marks, I should have the feeling that what I've just finished reading was a good essay, was a good exercise. Which is why there are many different ways that you can use. I was telling you earlier, one very effective way to make your essay interesting is compare and contrast. To understand what compare and contrast means, we are talking about economic prosperity. So here, what I do is I start first on a positive note by writing some positive features of the Indian economy. For example, that India today is the 6th largest economy in the world. Our GDP is $2.8 trillion. If you look at it in nominal terms, we have aspirations of becoming a $5 trillion economy soon. Second, if you wanted to add further to it, you can say that we are the 3rd largest economy when it comes to purchasing power parity, worth almost $9.6 trillion. Per capita income in India has been rising at a rapid pace. We were at roughly about $5,200 per annum in 2014, and now we've touched almost $7,000 in 2019. If you want, you can further say that we have a high growth trajectory. S&P has predicted that India will grow at a rate of roughly about 10% in 21-22. Last year, when the world was struggling with COVID-19, India was one country which attracted a 13% growth in our FDI. Now, through all of this, what I'm doing, essentially trying to tell you that India at the moment enjoys economic prosperity. And whatever we lack over a period of time, we are certainly going to be able to achieve that. Our growth rate is good, it is healthy. Now, that's the first part, compare and contrast. First part, I have said something positive. Now, what is the topic? That economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. I have told you that we have economic prosperity. Where is the meaningless part? The meaningless part now can come in many different, or how this prosperity would be meaningless can come in many different forms. In India, for example, a primary factor when it comes to social justice is the factor of caste. We have economic prosperity, but caste-based problems are prevalent in almost every aspect of Indian living. For example, here, with that, all that you have to do is add one small word over here. You write about India, you write about the Indian economy being very good, and then just add one word, however. What does however do? However now provides you with that contrast. India is a rapidly growing economy. India has a rapid GDP growth rate. India attracts a lot of FDI. India is the 6th largest economy in the world, and so on. However, according to the World Inequality Database, India's upper caste households earned almost 47% more than the national annual household income. What does this imply? This implies a concentration of economic resources or a concentration of wealth, which means that we do not have social justice. Reading further, the top 1% within these castes own 30% of the total wealth, and the top 10% accounted for 55% of the total wealth. What does that mean? 10% get access to 55% of the wealth. 90% of the population now is going to get access to only 45%. What does this mean? A huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. Distributive justice is absent. Social justice is absent. You know a fact like this, use it for contrast. You do not know a fact like this, use a simple news report. For example, while the pandemic was still in flow, there was a study conducted by Ashoka University. And the study by Ashoka University found that socially marginalized groups were at a higher risk of economic hardships during the COVID pandemic. It found, for example, that the economic effects of the pandemic were most concentrated among the low wage earners and the less educated workers. And not surprisingly for India, this is where racial and ethnic minorities are most overrepresented. That if you belong to a backward caste, there's a higher possibility that the negative impact of the pandemic would be greater upon you. They even published data to show this, that the job loss for SCs was 14% higher than that for upper castes. In other words, the chances that a person would lose a job was varying by a factor of 3 times. If a person belonged to an upper caste, the chances of his losing a job, let's say they are 1. If the same person was in the scheduled caste, the chances of losing the job were 3 times higher. Number 1, positive aspects of the Indian economy. Second, one small caste-based data, for example, here to indicate the lack of social justice. Third, and this please remember carefully, Uh, I've seen a lot of people who try to confuse students by giving them a very complicated structure. They include terms which are not necessarily a part of an essay writing assignment, but they do it because they need to create a structure inside a classroom. All of that is not necessary. Simple method that I would advise to you. This was your introduction. First, you wrote the positives of the Indian economy. Second, to indicate that we have economic prosperity. Second, you gave me some negative facts about social justice, the absence of social justice. Third, at the end of your introduction, where you're completing your paragraph, just repeat the topic. When you repeat the topic, it number one substantiates what you've written so far, and number two creates a very strong impact on the person who's reading your essay. For example, here I say India is a great economy. However, Ashoka University says that the economic hardships during the COVID pandemic were not the same for higher caste and upper caste. Little bit of information, so on and so forth. Therefore, this affirms that economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. What have you told me? By writing this introduction, you have expressed to me what your view on the topic are. And now in the rest of the essay, you will elaborate upon these views. Now, let me further reinforce this for you. I'm a student, I have no information about caste. But there's always a possibility that I have no information about caste. There's always a possibility that I have a little bit of information on gender. Indian economy, the positive features I've just written. After that, I talk a little about gender. For gender, again, the n number of information that I have, for example, that India has slipped to 112th position from 108 in the 2018 Gender Gap Index. I don't know that. Another, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact of the pandemic was uneven for men and women. The ActionAid Association says that during the pandemic, 79% of the women lost their jobs as compared to only 75% men. Additionally, 51.6% of the women said that they received no wages during the lockdown compared to only 46% of the men. I have this piece of information, good. I don't have it, use another piece of information. Women labour force participation rate in India, which has been rapidly falling due to n number of reasons. What are the reasons? Poor wages, long commuting hours, gender pay gap, migrations, safety issues, and so on. Don't have this information? Another one. Economic Survey 2018-2019, which says that in the age group of 30 to 59, when most women have completed their education, or when most women are married, the proportion of women performing unpaid domestic duties increased from 46% in 2005 to 65% in 2018. And at the same time, India has witnessed rapid economic growth, which means again that we have economic prosperity, but it is clear that we do not have social justice. Therefore, again at the end of your paragraph, this affirms that economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. 3 simple steps that I followed in the introduction. Compare and contrast. Number 1, wrote something positive to emphasize that we have economic prosperity. Second, wrote something negative to indicate the absence of social justice. And third, added the topic at the end. This affirms that economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. Now, you can talk about caste, you can talk about gender. Maybe you have information on neither of them. In that case, what can you do? Talk about healthcare. Again, India has a good economy. Indian economy has positive features, but in the healthcare sector, there are stark differences between haves and have-nots. For example, 95.5% of the births occurring in the top 20%, in the richest 20% of households, were attended to by skilled birth attendants, but the same figure for the bottom 20% is only 64%, which means 36% of the births occurring in the bottom 20% of our population, the person who delivers the baby does not even have the required skills, creating, of course, a significant risk, maybe even a fatal risk. You do not know that. Another piece of information, catastrophic household healthcare expenditure. And this expenditure pushes 7% of our population below the poverty line every year, because public spending on healthcare is very low. And again, therefore, positive features, negative about healthcare. Therefore, economic prosperity without social justice is meaningless. What are you doing? So far, you're writing the introduction. In the introduction, you're providing a contrast. Positive features, negative aspect of social justice or the absence, to affirm that economic prosperity without social justice holds very little relevance. First is the introduction. Second now come your body paragraphs. First paragraph you wrote to introduction. Before you start with the rest of it, now explain the terms, explain how they're correlated, explain the key concern of the topic. Let me just help you place where this is coming from. Earlier, when we talk about the skeletal structure, I said I'll explain this to you later. We said that first you explain what social justice, economic prosperity are, explain how social justice cannot be achieved without economic prosperity, and then explain how we often focus only on prosperity but ignore or violate social justice. This part now, point number 1 and point number 2 is what you're explaining in that one paragraph. What are you doing there? Explaining these two. You're essentially explaining these two terms. How do you explain them? For example, here, first explain why is economic prosperity, social justice, economic prosperity, what they are, we already looked at. Why is economic prosperity important? Because it ensures better utilization and ideally should ensure better distribution of economic resources and of opportunities. Second, if you have economic prosperity, it will increase earnings, will increase savings, will increase jobs, employment opportunities, and so on. Third, economic efficiency will enable better provisioning, better delivery of public services also. This is why economic prosperity is important. Unless I have that, I cannot provide social justice. In plain simple terms, if I look at India on the eve of independence, unless and until we have a very large population, even in 1947, we have a severe constraint of economic resources. Unless I generate more economic activity, unless I generate more economic benefits, I cannot provide you better schools, better colleges, better healthcare, roads, and so on. So economic prosperity is absolutely crucial. But what is the concern then? The concern is, as we were saying earlier also, concern is that the focus largely is only on growth. It is not on development. Second, that there's a skewed distribution, imbalanced distribution of resources and of opportunities. Because of which, number 3, there's a growing gap between haves and have-nots. Now, students say, how and where and how many quotations can I use? That depends upon your content and the suitability of a quotation. Now, here, for example, when I want to emphasize that economic prosperity, economic growth is not enough, social justice is equally, if not more important, here comes a small quotation by Confucius. Confucius says that inequality rather than scarcity is the cause of trouble. Problem is not that we have a scarcity of resources, problem is that we have a growing gap between the haves and have-nots. Rich becoming richer, poor becoming poorer. That essentially is not scarcity, that is only inequality. First paragraph was the introduction. Second paragraph was this over here, establishing the key concern of the topic. And cap it up, end it with a small statement, with a small quotation over here. You've explained to the examiner now very clearly what your views are and that your views are moving, are proceeding in the right direction. After you've written this, now come the rest of your body paragraphs. Introduction, about 200 words. Explaining these terms, about 150 to 200 words. That's about 400. At least 5 more body paragraphs you should have. Each body paragraph must satisfy these conditions. Number 1, every one of them must provide a different perspective, a different dimension. Don't repeat the same points again and again. Second, it should present a coherent argument with regard to the concerns, what is the problem, and any possible solutions that you can offer. But we are not concerned with your solution, with your opinion, unless you can substantiate, unless you can support that with appropriate data, appropriate examples. So provide that data, provide those examples to support it. Now, this I'm sure you can read on your own. Here again, let me take a small pause. My introduction was about 200 words. My conclusion is going to be about 100 words, that's 300. Another 150 words I used to explain the key concerns. If I'm writing 5 paragraphs and every paragraph is 150 words in length, that will add up to about 750 words. 150 words is very small, is very brief. So you cannot beat around the bush. You must have a clear idea in your mind as to how you want to provide that problem, how you want to provide a recommendation or a solution, and how you're going to give your data, your examples. Which is why follow a simple, and again keep it as simple as possible, follow a simple format. For any factor that you're considering, for example, here we look at caste first. First, identify what is your concern. Second, what recommendation you can give. And third, finally, any data, examples, evidence that you can use. For example, first paragraph, introduction. Second paragraph, establishing the key concern. Third paragraph, I start writing about caste. What is my intention? To emphasize that without social justice, economic prosperity is not worth much. In India, what is the concern? With regard to caste, the concern is that our caste system prevents mobility among the lower castes and very often keeps them confined, keeps them restricted to unskilled, to low-paying occupations. Which means that even if they want to work more or work better, they will not get those opportunities. Second, because of the caste system, there's a skewed distribution of resources, there's a skewed distribution of opportunities. In India, for example, 47%, the upper caste households in India earn 47% more than the national annual household income. If you look at it further, top 1%, this is the data we are repeating from earlier, top 1% within these castes own 30% of the total wealth in 2019, top 10% own 55%. Now here some students will say that this information I was using in the introduction, how do I repeat it here? If you use this in the introduction, you will not use it here, you will use something else. There are n number of, for example, if I look at it, this caste information I already used in the introduction, then what I can do is I can talk about gender. I've already used gender, I can use healthcare. Use that, I will use people with disabilities, technology, demographic profile, and so on. What you use depends upon how you organize your material, but more importantly, how you're writing your paragraph. First part of your paragraph, what is your basic concern? Second part of your paragraph, your recommendation. For example, if the caste system is creating a problem over here, first you can recommend affirmative action. For example, in the form of reserving seats in institutions of higher education, for example, by reserving seats in the central government for disadvantaged groups. Second, providing soft loans to encourage participation in more and better economic activities. But this is your opinion. I can say that we should have soft loans, we should have affirmative action, but is that actually practically possible? How do you substantiate your argument? For that, always give examples. For that, always give examples, always have evidence. For example, over here from India comes what we call Stand Up India. What is Stand Up India? A scheme to facilitate scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and women borrowers to get loans from banks at lower interest rates. If you remember Stand Up India, mention that. You cannot remember that Ashoka University study that we were talking about earlier. This again goes to highlight the concern that we're facing earlier. Very simple manner in which you're dividing your paragraph. First, the concern, briefly writing this much. Second, the recommendation. Third, the evidence. If I want to do this further, I would say forget about caste, I'll take a look at gender. For gender, again, the information that we were using earlier. Information says that the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic was not the same for men as well as women. More women lost their jobs. More women were not paid during the lockdown as compared to men. You want to write further? You can say that the proportion of women performing unpaid domestic duties in India is rising at an alarming rate. 46% in 2005, rising to 65% in 2018. What is the recommendation that you can give, or how do we overcome this? Equality of opportunity, legal interventions such as sexual harassment or the Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, for example, Maternity Benefit Act, and so on. But again, some evidence you must have, some data you must have. So here you can talk about the STEP program, Support to Training and Employment program. Second, you can talk about Mahila e-Hearts. Third, the Mahindra group of companies, their initiative called Nani Kali. one of India's largest CSR initiatives. Let me take a pause. This is just information, and once the information is given to you, reading it, using it is relatively simple. More importantly, understand the structure that you're following over here, all that you're doing. And to understand the structure, let me briefly take you back. All that you are doing over here in your body paragraphs, number one, you are telling us what is the concern. First, of course, you're identifying a certain perspective. That perspective may be gender. That perspective may be caste. That perspective may be healthcare, and so on. You're keeping your paragraph as simple as possible. Number one, you're identifying the concern. Why or how is social justice absent? Second, you're briefly mentioning a small recommendation to overcome that problem. And third, you're substantiating it by giving us some evidence, by adding a small example or some data. In this manner, all that this will take of you is about 3 to 4 minutes, writing about 120 to 150 words. Your paragraph is over, now move to the second, or the third, or the fourth. For example, here, the first paragraph you wrote about social or the lack of social justice because of caste. Then you wrote about a lack of social justice on the basis of gender. Third, you can write about it on the basis of healthcare. What do you mean by on the basis of healthcare? In India, for healthcare, one major concern that we face is affordability, where healthcare services are extremely expensive. Healthcare expenditure, household expenditure can be absolutely catastrophic. To overcome this, what recommendation would you give? Provide free and comprehensive health services, provide free and comprehensive healthcare insurance. And the example that you can give over here, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. You have a little more information at a second point that in India, public healthcare expenditure is very low. You are economically prosperous, but there is no social justice because the government is not spending adequately on healthcare. As a result of which, and India is a country where 65%, that's 2/3, 65% of the total amount of money spent on healthcare in any given year comes from the pockets of the people themselves. To overcome this, what can we recommend? Increase budgetary allocation for healthcare. If you want, since it is out-of-pocket expenditure, you can say that we can recommend financial risk pooling. And as an example for this, you can quote the National Healthcare Policy very briefly. Again, see, when people study for essays, they believe that all this information, 65% over here, 40% over there, 5 lakhs per family, this is not important. What is important is, first, what is the problem you've identified? Second, what is the recommendation that you give? And third, number 3, in the world around you, what evidence, what data have you seen which supports this argument? Just this much you write and your essay rises in quality. Similarly, you can always say this differential treatment and sometimes even denial of treatment based on social factors. Depending upon what your caste is, what your religion is, what your gender is, which part of the country you live in, there's a possibility that you may not even get access to healthcare in our country. For this, what do we recommend? For example, here you can say gender budgeting. A very good example that can be given over here is the Musahar community from eastern UP and Bihar. The unique aspect of this community is that in the entire country, they are the ones who suffer the most because of Kala Azar, even in 2020-2021, indicating again that while we are economically prosperous, social justice still leaves a lot to be desired. So again, you can write about caste, you can write about gender, you can write about healthcare, you can even write. Now, these are basic dimensions. See, this is how we tell students to think about an essay. This is your topic over here: gender, caste, healthcare, people with disabilities, so on and so forth, different perspectives. A good student will choose 5 perspectives and write quality content on that. A poor student usually will have only 1 or 2 aspects and will keep repeating them. The more novel your content, the better you're able to write, the richer, of course, will be your marks also. People with disabilities, again, if you could think of this, it would be a very novel addition. Very few people would write about this. Concern for us is that 2.1% of India's population suffers from some disability or the other. And unfortunately, they are deprived of gainful employment, they are deprived of equal opportunities, they are deprived of financial security. when the lockdown was announced, I don't think the government, even at that time, gave adequate attention to how people with disabilities were going to cope, especially if they were elderly or especially if they were living by themselves. Even today in India, the representation in the private sector is very low, with only 0.3% of the workforce of large private firms being composed of people who have disabilities. So what recommendation do you give over here? You say that we should improve attitudes and perceptions with regard to hiring of people with disabilities. Usually, and it is frequently noticed, that people who have disabilities make dependable employees, have higher levels of commitment and motivation, and usually perform better than their non-disabled peers. Second, you can say that they are more likely to stay on the job, which is why expenses related to recruitment, to turnover, to employee attrition, to training can be significantly reduced for companies, increasing your economic prosperity in the process. Third, you can say create incentives, develop innovative ways, and a very good example that you can quote over here is Costa Coffee. Costa Coffee is I would say quite a popular outlet in India for coffee. If you've been to their outlets, you would have noticed that Costa Coffee makes a very deliberate and a very conscious effort to recruit hearing impaired people across their outlets. And when they recruit them, they do not recruit them for back-end operations. They recruit them for operations where these employees directly interact with the customers. What is at the moment 11% of the employees have some form of disability or the other. Customers are very happy to be served by this workforce. Customers believe that the employees of Costa Coffee work harder to please the customer, and the customers say that by the time we walk out, we realize that it is important to be patient, it is important to be understanding, and we develop a genuine respect for people who, despite some form of disability or the other, are working hard to overcome that disability and earn a better life for themselves. So again, you could have the perspective of people who are suffering disabilities also. Further, again, another paragraph if you wanted, you could talk about technology. For technology, what is the concern? If I have a technology-intensive economic system, this will ensure greater productivity for the labor, this will increase economic efficiency, but it will also increase unemployment. A report by the ILO says that in India, 51.8% of the jobs in India at the moment can be automated. But this would come at a terrible cost for those who will lose their jobs and their families who lose their jobs from such automation. So, what recommendation we make? Create a safety net for any negative fallout. What is a safety net? For example, the provision of a universal basic income. For example, wage insurance. For example, providing training to upskill and so on. And as evidence over here, what you could have talked about was two countries in particular, France and Sweden. To overcome the negative impact of automation, what they have recommended, what they've experimented with, is redistributing work hours, putting a cap on the total number of hours that a person will work, ensuring that the work is distributed evenly, and evenly not only in terms of time but also across people, ensuring every person is able to earn at least a minimum basic. Similarly, and this is again the use of technology. How? Because if you want to increase prosperity, I will choose automation, but social justice then would be hampered. Again, if you wanted to add more, demographic profile. India is a country which is very proud of its demographic profile. We are a young population, we are an English-speaking population. Reality is that we've not been able to capitalize on our demographic dividend. In this case, what can you recommend? Tailored policies. In India, for example, at the moment, we have a one-size-fits-all approach. The approach that works for a state like Bihar would be very different should be very different from the policy that works for a state like Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan. Why? In plain simple terms, demographics we are talking about. In plain simple terms, because the demographic profile of the population may be different. In states where most of the population is aging or is older, it is very important to provide better healthcare facilities. On the other hand, for states that have a younger population, most of the population is younger, it is very important to provide education and job skills, to provide skill development. Therefore, have tailor-made policies. And in this case, what you could have mentioned as an example is the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. You can mention the National Skill Development Mission and so on. Again, this is just information. More importantly, understand the structure. A simple 3-step structure. Number 1, identify first identify what is the platform you're using. First, what is the concern. Second, what recommendation you can give. And third, finally, what evidence, data, example, facts you can use to substantiate the argument that you made over here. And again, essentially, what are you doing over here? You are essentially ensuring, let me just go back over here. This is what you're doing over here. First, you understood the topic correctly. Second, you're providing a consistent perspective on the topic. You explain what social justice is, explain what economic prosperity are, how they're correlated, how we often focus only on economic prosperity, how this violates social justice, and how there can be an appropriate balance that can be maintained between the two. With the information that we've shared, I would advise you that if you have the time, please take about 1 hour and 35 to 45 minutes. 1 hour 30 minutes is not necessary, a little more than that. Take that time out, organize your thoughts on a piece of paper and write this essay down within 1000 to 1200 words to understand whether you got the gist of it. The other essay topics that were given in this year's mains we'll take up in the subsequent videos. Thank you.